Hello everyone. Good evening. I hope you are all doing well. And
Good morning.
yeah, and we're just going to give it a few seconds, and then we're going to kick off. We'll just let everybody get on, and then we'll start. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We have Dr. Dimalanta here with us again this evening, or I should say in the morning in the Philippines and evening here in the United States. And wherever you are in the world, it could be morning, afternoon, but we definitely have had a crowd from all over. So wherever you are, hello. I'm going to start by doing a quick introduction to Dr. Dimalanta. And then I have Lonnie Hessen, who is the co-founder of the Phoenicia Foundation on, and she's going to give you a little background about Phoenicia. I'm Lisa Valerio, and I am the founder of Phoenicia Foundation. And it is just an honor to be here with Lonnie and Eric. Eric was last week. Lonnie and Eric and Dr. Dimalanta. So I'm going to start by doing a quick little intro about Dr. Dimalanta. For those of you who it's the first time joining us, if you haven't, you can watch the replays on our YouTube channel and on Facebook to get caught up. But if not, and this is your first time, I want to give a little introduction. Dr. Dimalanta is the art of multitasking, and one of his greatest challenges to date is being a Phil Pediatric Society Board of Trustees and the head of the PSCAP Task Force on Mental Health for Children and Youth. Through his maneuvering and through weaving partnerships, the task force has managed to engage all 12 PPS chapters nationwide for the rollout of a module for pediatricians on mental health. They are now currently working on a module for parents and educators. Dr. Dimalanta has obtained his medical degree at the UER MMMC, internship and pediatric residency at St. Luke's Medical Center, fellowship in developmental behavioral pediatrics at UP PGH. He pursued his international fellowship, clinical observership in various developmental pediatric centers in the US, including the Children's Hospital of Boston of Harvard Medical School and Cornell University. He is a fellow and member of the Board of Trustees of the PSDBP, and currently is the head of the section of developmental and behavioral pediatrics of 2 St. Luke's Medical Centers. Among his many advocacies closest to his heart is putting up a Child's Dream Foundation in Baguio City in 2003, and then joining us as an advisory board member of the Phoenicia Foundation 3 years ago. So a big warm welcome to Dr. Dimalanta. And we're super excited to hear about reading, which is part of the SMART goals. I'll let Lonnie take it over.
Hi, everyone. Lisa, thank you for that lovely introduction of Dr. Dimalanta. And we are so happy, of course, to have you back, Dr. Dimalanta. Before I let you take it away, I will just remind everyone about the Phoenicia Foundation. Lisa mentioned that she is the founder, and our mission is to help special needs children and their families thrive. It really is our pleasure and great honor to be able to do this work, and this year via webinar primarily, since we are not able to travel to you due to the COVID and the pandemic. So we're supporting our mission to help special needs children and their families thrive remotely, and in fact are reaching so many more of you, which is really the biggest bonus and blessing of this media outreach versus a live outreach. But we hope to be back with you in person next year. And I will just tell you the wonderful story of the Phoenicia flower, which is a member of the daisy family that can be found globally. The special part about this particular daisy is that it is only found in the Philippines, the Phoenicia flower itself. So our mission is to be global eventually, but we got our start with the wonderful people and culture of the Philippines. So thank you so much for the opportunity to work with you. And Dr. Dimalanta, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Lonnie, and thank you, Lisa, for that great introduction. So it's good morning, Philippines, and good evening to all our listeners in the US. So as mentioned, this is the fifth of a series of 5 talks where we are encouraging our doctors and parents to look into play as an alternative to many of the things that they do today. So it's a prescription for play. We started out with sports, music, arts. Today we're doing reading. And next week will be our final run on theater. So I'd like to start with a prayer. Lord, let me be the change I want to see. Do with strength and wisdom all that needs to be done and become the hope that I can be. Set me free from my fears and hesitations. Grant me courage and humility. Fill me with spirit to face the challenges and start the change I long to see. Even if I am not the light, I can be the spark in faith, in service, and communion. Let us start the change we want to see, the change that begins in me. Amen. So today, we will be dealing with reading. And here is our outline. So first, to let you know what reading is all about, the reading brain, how to let our children become better readers, how to encourage children with special needs in reading, and during this unprecedented pandemic. By reading, you are exposed to so many wonders imagination when it comes to creating and thinking, and by reading the story in your mind. Books can take you anywhere you want to go. We can help children become avid readers through awakening their imagination, improving their language skills, and develop 10 things: imagination, focus, memory, communication, entertainment, bonding, making them smarter, even for language development. And it's free. So reading needs to be an everyday part of our lives. Colored, first of all, it has to be enjoyable. It will not matter to a child if you force them to read and they're not ready yet. But according to a Reach Out and Read program that has been started in Boston, we are encouraged to give a book to a child 6 months onward up to age 6 for every well child visit. In that way, we would have given them 15 books throughout those years. So the outcomes of reading will occur more often and more strongly if it is enjoyable in the first instance. And research will say that it can result in increased empathy, interpersonal relationships, and even helping the well-being of a child. To reduce the risk of dementia, with frequent readers having lower incidence of dementia in later life. Reading for pleasure has social benefits and can improve our sense of connectedness to the wider community. Also, it increases our understanding of our own identity. It improves empathy, as I mentioned, and gives us an insight into the worldview of others. Now, according to Jacqueline Kennedy, there are many little ways to enlarge your child's world, and love of books is the best of all. So, what is reading? Reading is making meaning from print. And reading is a multifaceted process which involves four things: word recognition, comprehension, fluency, and motivation. So again, it requires that we first recognize, and then we understand or comprehend, and then be fluent. So these are the three requirements for us to be able to read properly. And in its fullest sense, it will involve weaving together word recognition and comprehension in a most fluent manner. When we talk about recognition, phonemic awareness means how to break apart and manipulate the sounds in words. Like, for example, feet has three sounds: F, E, and T. So F, E, T. And you know that F, E, T. That's why you know that children, when they start out, just pronounce all these phonemes. So certain letters represent certain sounds. And this is what alphabetic principle means, where S and H can make a sh sound. Now, how to apply their knowledge of letter sound relationships to sound out words new to them. For example, you have the word spoon. So you will say sp, u, n before they're able to decode that word. And then to analyze the words and spelling patterns in order to become more efficient at reading words is called word study. And this is like knowing bookworm has two words. And to expand the number of words that they can identify automatically is called sight vocabulary. Like, for example, when you start to say, oh, I know that word, and then they will come up with the next word. So first, we have to develop comprehension. And how do we do that? You need to have background knowledge about many topics. There's extensive oral and print vocabularies. You understand how the English language works and how print works. Also, there are various purposes for reading, like strategies for constructing meaning from text and for problem solving when meaning breaks down. It also develops a high level of accuracy in word recognition and maintains a rate of reading brisk enough to facilitate comprehension. Use phrasing and expression so that oral reading will sound like speech, and transform deliberate strategies for word recognition and comprehension into automatic skills. It also develops and maintains motivation to read by appreciating the pleasures. You will view reading as a social act to be shared with others, and to see reading as an opportunity to explore their interests. You don't force them to read something that they don't like. Hence, we are advocating age-appropriate books depending on the developmental level of your child. So, if reading isn't pleasurable or fulfilling, children won't choose to read. And I remember that when I was 9 years old, my older sister gave me a book because she was an avid reader, and she still is. And so it's my younger sister. But myself and my brother, I think, Uh, Both didn't like to read then. And I cried because I said I wanted a toy. So they have, or your child will have to have the motivation to read before you can force them to read as their siblings would. So reading widely for a variety of purposes, from enjoyment to gathering information, and it's important you're comfortable with a variety of different written forms and genres. So what is reading? Is the motivated and fluent coordination of word recognition and comprehension. And it's been said that children will fall in love with books because of the memories that are created when snuggle up and read with someone they love. So it's important to set a time, like after dinner, then probably after giving them a bath, then you know that it's downtime. And so you're not roughhousing your child, so that they know that reading is something they do before going to bed. And reading should be done separately for different ages of your children, because you will not know who might be reading at par or reading behind, because many of the older kids will end up finishing off the sentences of mom and dad or even their younger siblings. So again, we allocate about 2 to 3 minutes for attention span of any child for any age. For example, you're 3 years old, your attention span might be anywhere from 9 minutes to 10 minutes. So that's all you're going to put into it. Another thing that we have to remember is that if your child says, one more book, mommy, one more book, you can tell them, okay, just one more. So don't get fooled into reading 10 books to a child. So again, at the end of the day, it's about setting limits, but encouraging them if they want to, but telling them, okay, two is enough, because sometimes they just want to stay up with you and snuggle with you, right? Okay. So why does your brain need for you to read every day? It puts your brain to work, and reading is to the mind what exercise is to your body. Roberto Bolaño said, reading is like thinking, it's like praying, like talking to a friend, like expressing your ideas, listening to other people's ideas, listening to music, or it's like looking at the view, like taking a walk on the beach. Because there are numerous benefits to reading and can take you anywhere, because the mind is limitless. Your brain on books is active because it's constantly growing, constantly changing, constantly making new connections and different patterns depending on the type of material that you're reading. Now, what does it do? It heightens brain activity as well, because as you read these words, your brain will decode a series of abstract symbols and synthesize the result into complex ideas. Reading involves several functions, including visual and auditory processes, phonemic awareness, fluency, comprehension, and even more. The same neurological regions of the brain are stimulated by reading about something as by experiencing it. So here we see teacher Richie Mercado of Canadian American School reading to her students. And it can be likened to the real-time collaborative effort of a symphony orchestra with various parts of the brain working together. And like sections of instruments, we need to maximize our ability to decode the written text in front of us. It enhances fluid reasoning because it will increase fluid intelligence, and increased fluid intelligence means improving reading comprehension. While reading fiction, you mentally imagine the event, the situation, the characters, and the details described by the author, therefore making you more emotionally intelligent, and it's a total immersion process. If you struggle to focus, reading can also improve your attention span. And that's why I mentioned earlier that you have to do it depending on the attention span of your child, which is dependent on the age. So when you read a book, all of your attention is focused on the story or gaining a better understanding of a particular topic, and the rest of the world will just fall away, and you can immerse yourself in every fine detail that you are absorbing. Books with better structures will encourage us to think in sequence, because the more we read, the more our brains are able to link cause and effect. It also requires patience, diligence, and determination, because reading, like any skill, needs to be practiced regularly and constantly. Losing yourself in a book is the ultimate relaxation, and I think we really can do this and practice this and make it an activity now that we are all confined to our homes. Roald Dahl mentioned that, so please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV set away, and in its place, you can install a lovely bookcase on the wall. I'd like you to watch a 1-minute video after this. Showing us the power of reading.
Lonnie, we're not hearing the sound.
Lonnie's muted.
Hi,
Yeah.
sorry guys. Let's see if I can go ahead and fix that. Try now.
Talks about is games, TV shows, WhatsApp, Instagram, Bitmoji. I don't even know what that is. My brother just told me about it. WeChat, Kiki, Saraha, and I could go on forever. Studies have shown that some kids these days even spend 6.5 hours on a screen a day. I think we should draw attention to this problem. However, not reading can even result in making your brain less active or engaged. Just over the past year, I've enjoyed reading Winnetou by Carl May, the Harry Potter series with 8 books, Roald Dahl series with 12 books, and the Unwanted series with 7 books, and many, many single books in between. Some I've liked less, some I've liked more, but they all took me for such an adventure. Ask my family members. I'm a truly unhappy child when I don't have a good book to read right next to me. I love reading in places like my bed, on the move while walking, in the toilet, in queues, in vehicles, but more importantly, at home. I hide behind various corners of my house so nobody can find me and make me do anything else. Once I even hid behind a flower pot and pretended to be the flower, not moving at all. Nobody could find me for ages. It was hilarious. I read everywhere. So, for all of you skeptical people out there, let me tell you, when you have a good book to keep you company, there is nothing better in the universe. It takes you to places where you can't go and lets you meet people you can't meet. Reading is love in action. And the positives are endless. Like, I usually never have to study for spelling tests, and it makes my vocabulary so good that it easily impresses any grown-up. Sometimes, the first thing I know is I've just had a short conversation with the grown-up, and the next thing I know is there's a room full of adults talking about me. I can't imagine my life without a book. What I'm comparing is the lost art of reading, writing, communicating, and persuading to some of the great societal ills of the text message, the tweet, and the snap. While these wonders of modern technology have their place, we, the young generation, have to hold on to reading. It's the key to our kingdom. So go out there, find a good book, not just any book. The best are the ones recommended by another kid, and just go for it.
Isn't that inspiring? How you all wish that we will have our children turn out to be like Look, but even if they won't be, there's always a starting point, and it's never too late to start. So how do they become better readers? I think I'll be answering a few questions through this. Once children begin to master the many skills of reading, gaining fluency and independence, the ability to understand and take meaning from text broadens hugely. Reading to children can be a very pleasurable shared activity, whether it's with brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. And experience listening to stories and rhymes is great in any language, and children cope very well with 2 or more languages. As I mentioned earlier in one of my series, that children without speech delay can learn up to 6 languages. But if they have speech delay, then it's better that we stick to one, make them master it before we go to the next. Now, talking about text and asking questions, encouraging children to make connections between the text and their own experience, making links between newly gained knowledge and previous learning, forming conclusions from text, and furthering their vocabulary. Also, guiding readers towards intrinsic reasons for reading by developing an understanding of why we read, what reading is for, and nurturing a love of reading has been recognized as far more valuable. At this important stage of a child's reading development, there may be a danger of encouraging extrinsic reasons for reading, such as being allowed to move on to the next level of books at school or being given a sticker and so forth. If children want to pick up a book, comic, or magazine, choose their own reading material and enjoy reading, continue reading. But I would always tell them, you are what you read, you are what you watch, you are what you listen to, the music you listen to. Hence, if a child will continue to read The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, then they end up being wimpy kids. So we need to become effective readers and gain from the countless ensuing benefits. Reading to children and listening to them read can provide the motivation to further their own reading, whilst also exposing them to a wide variety of genre and text they may not necessarily choose independently. So at the onset, you can try to give them books, but as they grow older, what book do you want mommy to read or daddy to read? We can do that. And it's important, in the next slide, that you be a role model. Because if your child will see you or other people they admire enjoying a book, magazine, or comic, laughing at the characters, hearing you enthuse about the story, valuing books, they will then be inspired and more inclined to do the same themselves. So if parents are always on their gadgets or even saying they read using Kindle, then the child might move towards that than reading a book. So what do you read to them? They deserve to be offered the same opportunities, deciding what to read on, selecting books. And studies have shown that children develop greater intrinsic motivation to read when they can choose their own read matter. Then we need to share books. You have to leave a variety of books lying around and being accessible so they can be picked up at any time. It's like treating a child who's a picky eater. The food is just there, you say how good it tastes, then after a few attempts, they will try to eat the same food. So it goes for the books. Limit distractions, create a special reading area, allocate 10 minutes in a day when everyone in the house stops and reads. So you can have a reading corner, a reading tent. Okay, you can be creative. And when reading to your child, please have fun. Be brave, use different voices, use expressions, inflections, and vary the speed at which you read sentences, and if possible, always end on a cliffhanger. So there's something going to hold on to. Talking and asking questions during and after reading is immensely valuable. Not only does discussion reveal a child's understanding and interpretation of the text, but it gives an opportunity to explain reasons and form opinions. Asking a reader to predict what will happen later in the story will open up further opportunities for talk, as well as giving valuable insights into the reasons behind their expectations. So picture books, you can start with picture books because they're wonderfully complex creations. The interplay between the text and the illustrations can deepen the reader's understanding of the story, poem, or information. Now, the problem will be, how do you help if a child does not know how to read? On our next slide. First and foremost, don't panic. It is not uncommon for children to go off reading, and it may be for a number of reasons. First, we need to find out what causes it without adding further pressure, like saying, why can't you read as fast as your older sibling? What's the matter with you? Why can't you do what I'm asking you to do? So it's first, are we having difficulty seeing the words, reading the words? Because some of your children might even memorize what you're reading. So they will tell you what they want you to hear, but actually didn't read it. So we can have the 5-figure rule, which is, next slide, from the Reading Rocket website. You have to ask your child to look for a book that they think they will want to enjoy. And then on the second page, they have to read the second page, hold up a finger for each word that you're not sure of. If they are able to come up with 5 or more words, then that they didn't know, then they have to choose an easier book. You have to create positive attitudes towards books. And one of the greatest book writers would actually be Dr. Seuss, right? Explore author website. These are often interactive, packed with activities, information, and videos of authors reading their own work. So the places you can go, a whole lot of places, getting lost in them. Dr. Seuss said that the more you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. And how do we encourage reading in children with special needs? It allows them to gain listening and speaking skills while also admiring the concept of storytelling. Also, it helps bonding, because though we are now physically disconnected, we are socially, even more socially connected. Since we have more time together, let's think of this as a gift that we can enhance their understanding of the world and allow bonding time with you. Though some parents will struggle at first to read with their children with special needs, over time they will see their reactions and smiles that will make it all worthwhile. So don't add stress by forcing them to read, but you can start at their developmental level. We need to be consistent. This is probably how they will react and some struggle in showing emotions. And be patient. Don't be afraid to switch up books from time to time or stick to the same book if they show signs of enthusiasm. Now, if a child wants to read the same book over and over again for a week, you can tell them, okay, this is the last time I'll read it, and then we go on to the next, so that you are the one directing them. Also, we have to appreciate the effort you're putting in and feel closer. With the more books that you read, the better your narrator voice will become, and appreciate the meaningful lessons that are transmitted with every story. So you need to act out the voices. You need to, they need to hear your different voice inflections. Okay, buying interactive books that allow them to use their hands when it comes to touching and even stimulating all five senses will be most helpful and make them appreciative of the book's graphics and contents. Also, you can use the technological devices to make it fun, and there's some music that they can hear. Again, every time I'm asked, what's the best toy or the best book for a child? It is that which stimulates most of your senses. So a pop-up book will be helpful. And in the next slide, we know that there are interactive books. There are many that make it more engaging because like those with cardboard flags, which will, again, like I mentioned earlier, appeal to all five senses. It'll offer them a unique experience to open their minds. Books that require interaction. Enthusiasm is the key, so it's important to recognize that you are showing enthusiasm regardless, that can shape your child's world and help them fit well into the routine of reading. Books are so beneficial for children with special needs and can help boost their self-esteem and also provide a sense of self-awareness when it comes to their surroundings. Children are made readers in the lives of their parents. So it's important, and the first teacher any child will have are the parents. So again, I encourage you to start reading to your children, grandchildren as early as 6 months old. And go simple, start slow. You can do the board books or the thin, what do you call this? The books that have some texture so that when they throw it, it's not painful. Okay, you can do that. Next. And why we must keep reading during this COVID pandemic. This can be an alternative to all the gadgets that they're using. You make them take a break for even just 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon to read with you. Because as schools close in the wake of this pandemic, educators and parents alike are thinking about how the ways kids spend the coming months will affect their school readiness. And we're in this for the long haul. We're looking at the rest of the year. So if that's going to happen, by making them develop their reading habits, it will be helpful. Children living in disadvantaged communities are particularly vulnerable to falling behind. So we have started a book program where we tried to adopt a community, and the books from one private school are given to the age and grade equivalent schools. We're living in an unprecedented moment in history. It's changing every hour, every day, every week. And for many families, reading is probably a very dismal concern because many are focused on basic necessities. However, we will be able to help us with some of the deep emotions we are feeling right now, like stress, sadness, anxiety, and isolation. And reading will teach you just that. It helps you feel connected to the broader human community, both today and in the past. Schools are closed. Children are suddenly learning remotely from home. They can't see their friends, go to playgrounds, have parties, or partake in sports and other activities. Hence, since our worlds have been upended due to this pandemic, there's an added uncertainty and anxiety surrounding the pandemic itself. Books are one tool that parents can use to help facilitate those discussions. They can enable children to identify the emotions they're feeling and start to process them. So here's a sample of a book, storybook for children on COVID-19. COVID means coronavirus disease, which was discovered in 2019, hence that's the name. Let's find the hero in you. Next slide, please. And J.K. Rowling said, I think it's the books that you read when you're young that will live with you forever. So in conclusion, it's even a more powerful factor in life achievement than socio-economic background. Interacting with others over books develops social and oral skills, leading to increased social interaction and oral language development, becoming a source of pleasure throughout life. The research will show that reading for pleasure at school is strongly influenced by relationships between teachers and children and families. Parents are influential in developing early reading for enjoyment, and if books are valued from a young age, this is likely to continue. Aside from the sheer joy of exercising the imagination, research shows reading for pleasure improves literacy, social skills, health, and learning outcomes. It gives people access to culture and heritage and empowers them to become active citizens who can contribute to economic and social development. Books and reading transforms lives and enrich our communities. Because reading is not just something that children should do in school. It needs to be an everyday part of our lives and something we choose to do at all ages. And to end this lecture, we heard from Malala Yousafzai. Let us remember, one book, one pen, one child, and one teacher can change the world. Thank you very much, and good evening and good morning to our listeners.
Thank you, Dr. Dimalanta. We have quite a few different questions here. I think they're all really amazing. And I'm going to start with the first one is how can we empower reading ability for learners who have learning disabilities? And we have such as ADHD. We have a lot of people asking questions about how do we teach children with ADHD how to read, and how do we empower them and others with learning disabilities?
I think, first of all, you have to find out what kind of disability they have. Is it a reading, a writing, decoding? Do they have issues with focusing and concentration? So maybe the key word here is to start slow. Don't overwhelm them. Again, that's why time and again, repeatedly, I mentioned that you have to remember the developmental age of your child. They may be 11, but the reading skills might be lower than that. So you just start with something easy. Go slow and try to make them develop the love for it rather than saying, you sit down and you have to read this. And you can't do this if you don't read. I mean, it's not motivating. So read with them, and I think they will find all the benefits as you progress.
The next question, and I'm going to kind of go in the series here around kids who have special needs. Somebody indicated here in the movie, every child is special. A child with autism can't read, but is a great artist. Is it appropriate to just ignore reading or just focus on what he or she loves, or do we still need to encourage them to read?
I would say that we need to explore possibilities. A child initially who was threatened or was afraid about reading may not want it initially. Just like I said, a picky eater or someone whose dad is a sports player and the child won't want to play sports. So for me, it's important to teach them first how to read, but have the basic. For example, you have a nonverbal child who has autism. You can start reading to him a story. You can start by having flashcards first of the different colors, the shapes, the letters, and the numbers. And from then, you can progress slowly. Don't jump into it and force them into it, because anything, as in my case, my two sisters love to read, but I think both brothers didn't, and we just wanted to play. And sometimes that happens to the girls who are more bookish, I would say, but at some point, catch up. So it's the very same way. Let's explore possibilities. And the secret here is to go slow.
Thank you. The other question here is, if I can't afford a book for my child, is it okay to let them read on my phone? And could this actually harm their eyesight?
Depends on how old. Maybe you can print that out. We don't, like I said, reading is very cheap. You can use your gadgets, provided that you tell them, you maybe show them the difference between reading from a gadget, reading from a book. I think there's just so much joy in flipping pages together first than doing this, right? That's why many children learn how to navigate with their fingers and not write. And we need to go back to teaching them how to write. One thing that we have to remember, a 2-year-old, as I mentioned before, will have a palmar grasp. So you don't teach this child to write using this tripod grasp, because it's not even developmentally appropriate. In very much the same way, the child may not be ready to read yet. Don't read to them the big words that will intimidate them. Start with flashcards.
The next one is, are you aware of any organizations who offer free books for kids who may not be able to afford or are out of school in the Philippines? It's one of the questions.
Yes, there are many websites. There's many things. I hope, and that was what we were planning to do, right? Lisa, to come up with a list of resources, because even now, instead of you watching your Korean telenovelas, just search for some of these sites and it will be helpful. And search with your child. That way, you're creating the time spent in front of a gadget more meaningful. Okay, so make this a joint activity, a bonding activity. There are many ways. I cannot even tell parents now to limit the use of gadgets for just 1 hour, 2 hours, as I did before. It could be for 4 hours, 8 hours on the average, as mentioned by Luke in his TED Talk. But if you change 1 or 2 hours of that into reading, into learning how to do all of this, into searching, then it's a joint activity.
Mm-hmm. And I would just say, I know that there used to be an organization called Books for the Barrios, and then also there is an organization called Room to Read. And so I would just recommend looking that up and seeing if they are doing any outreach. And then again, we will start to try to post, things that are online where folks can download books and etc. But feel free to definitely, to do that search until we're able to get those resources up there for you. The other one here is, there is a stigma with children reading between English and Filipino text. I think this is also because of the influence of cartoons my child sees, like Peppa the Pig, Mickey Mouse, Sophia. First, how do I make my child start slowly reading Filipino works made for kids?
You start anytime they're ready. Every time I'm asked, when is a child ready for school? The answer is, when is the school ready for the child? If a child likes to play, as what I've been trying to send the message out there, they can play up to 6 years old. You don't have to force them to write, to force them to read. Go slowly. And then probably switching from English, because English is our main language in teaching. Then once they've mastered that, then you can move towards reading Tagalog. You can do Tagalog probably because we have a lot of values, Filipino values that are taught in these books. But you can probably start English first and do Tagalog, right? Because many of them don't even know how to speak Tagalog because they weren't introduced to that early on.
This is a question around transferring, everybody's teaching online learning right now. And this person's child's school is obviously encouraging, online libraries for their school activities. And again, they're worried about, too much screen time damaging their eyes. What do you think is the maximum amount of reading per day for a child online?
Now, that's a tricky question because it depends on the schools, what they will do with it. Some have tried to do the blended learning, right? Telling you that, okay, here's the assignment, let's get off, then you start doing your work, then let's come back. So it depends on what school you brought your child into and how to work with the teachers, because some traditional schools probably will tell them that we have to stay online to complete all of this because there are certain requirements. So working with them and telling them, for me, it's very important. It's the year 2020. Let's remember, after 20 minutes, 20 seconds, look out far away, 20 feet away, then you can rest. After 20 minutes, stand up, get a glass of water, then come back. So you're just breaking it. You're not on this online all the time, the rest of the day. Many of us, we should admit that upon waking up, the first thing we do is look at our phones, correct? It shouldn't be the case. You should have 1 hour first of doing some form of exercise, of reading your daily prayers or something, of journaling things that have happened. Then you know that you're setting your day right. But if a parent will do just that and children will see that, then they'll do the same thing with you.
Another question here. Is it appropriate to teach skimming and scanning to an 8-year-old who is fond of reading books? Or does it make their reading experience less enjoyable and limit their imagination skills?
It depends. Again, there's no blanket rule for everyone. I'm sad to say that, nor is there a manual for parenting. But for reading, will they find the joy in skimming through a whole book? It's not a race that has to be finished. They have to savor. Of course, we have the speed reading and all, and some children might be very gifted and talented in that sense. However, you miss out. It's like multitasking. You're doing so many things at the same time. You don't enjoy the moment. So I believe that this pandemic, if there's something good that has come off this, is it has given us time to move back, to declutter ourselves, to detoxify, right? And to make each moment count. We have to live in the moment. We're running and it's a race and all our children are just following our pace. But if we slow down and we set these times for reading slowly, nicely, if of course they're fast readers, then they can finish a book every day, 1 book a day, then that's good. Then go on to the next. Then you can ask them, what have you learned from that? How about sharing it with your siblings, sharing it with mom and dad? Make it interactive because again, we are, I believe, given a chance to go back to our families, to spend time with them, though it poses a big threat to our earning capacities because everybody's feeling it now and we feel it for the next 6 months and more. So we're in this for the long haul. We are trying to show you things that you can do at home, which could be reading, music, doing arts, doing some sports, and next week, it will be theater.
Yeah, Dr. Dimalanta, I'm just going to take 2 more questions and then we're going to wrap for the. Then this question here is if will letting a child with global developmental delay listen to audible stories, as in audible.com, give the same effect as reading aloud to her for a real book?
Yes and no. Maybe for a start, because they will hang on to the voice. And for me, the best voice is the mom's voice, dad's voice, sibling's voice, right? There are many audiobooks that you can start, but a lot of children don't like the high-pitched sounds. Okay, so what may work for one won't work for the other, but it's worth exploring. And I think that's a good idea. Try that, and if they don't want that, use your own voice. What better music it is to the ears of your children to hear your voice.
Great. And then the last question is, if there's a suspicion that my child has dyslexia, what should I do? And then the second part of that question is, does resorting to different play therapies be the solution, or will my child have a higher chance of having dementia?
Well, those are both good questions, but a consult. So if you have dyslexia, you find out what kind and what level they are in. Are they just a grade level below, 2 grade levels below? Because it'll be different. And see if there is an underlying condition, because many of our learning disabilities have an underlying attention problem. So we get to the source and not just a band-aid to the existing problem that you see. The second question I didn't quite get right here, right, Lisa?
Yeah, I think their concern is that, you know, could their dyslexia get worse if you allow them to continue to do the other things besides the reading?
Other play therapies.
Yeah.
It depends. Again, these are all options that you can all try. It's a hit and miss for every child. And always remember, this is a collaborative effort between your doctor, your occupational therapist, speech therapist, special education teacher, regular teacher, psychologist. There's a whole team that we're trying to help you let your child achieve their fullest potential.
Thank you, Dr. Dimalanta. I really appreciate this. Was super insightful, and I really appreciate everybody who've asked such great questions. I know that we didn't get to all the questions, but I think overall they all had a similar theme, and so I think we covered the majority of it. We look forward to next week, the last in our series, and then we will take a break for a couple months, and then we are going to come back and do more around the SMART series and giving more tips for each of the different activities that one could be doing with others. So with that, we will wrap up for the evening. Lonnie, thank you for helping guide us through this and helping Dr. Dimalanta with the slides. And we wish all of you a good day, good night, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.